Welcome to Speedweek, everyone. We'll catch you up on what's going on in racing in the next half hour. I'm Bob Jenkins.
And I'm Larry Nuber. Later in this show, the results of the Paris to Dakar Rally, Daytona testing, and the Porsche IndyCar driver. But first, a conversation with a very well-liked yet much talked-about race driver.
Various accusations such as drug abuse and AIDS have been leveled against Tim Richmond in the past year, but he continues to battle back from critics. Next Tuesday, Richmond will meet with NASCAR's Bill France Jr. to discuss Tim's possible return to Winston Cup racing. Tim's style has always been aggressive, whether it be in a race car professionally, at play on a cigarette boat on the ocean, or working out with weights and aerobics.
I thrive on competition. I mean, it's like I'm addicted to competition.
His competitive spirit meshed up well with the fatherly guidance of Harry Hyde in 1986, and the team won 7 of 17 Winston Cup events. But after the season concluded, Tim's competitiveness, his drive to satisfy too many commitments, cost him his health, a life-threatening bout of double pneumonia. Although he came back in '87 and recorded 2 straight victories, his health was still not good. He resigned from the Rick Hendrick team amidst rumors of drug abuse. Some say those rumors led to NASCAR's decision to implement a drug testing program for 1988. Tim, do you have a drug problem?
I'm sorry, but that question has been asked more than once here, more than once by everybody, and I am not answering that question. I am going to let the drug test in Daytona answer it, and NASCAR can answer it for y'all. And if they don't answer it the right way, then I'll have my little bottle, and there will be another answer there. Because I know whether it's dirty or whether it's clean, and it is clean.
You know, everybody talked about Tim having some problems with drugs. Tim was sick with the flu or the pneumonia or what, and it got him down, and they tried to prove drugs on him, and, you know, he's taken drug tests, and he's been in the hospital, and surely if he had been on drugs, it would have came out when he went in the hospital, because everybody in the hospital don't keep secrets. So, I don't feel like Tim was using drugs. I think Tim had some other problems, and hopefully Tim can get his problems worked out and make a comeback.
Is your health such that you can run a full Winston Cup season?
The bottom line is I won't ever come back unless the schedule changes and run a full-blown Winston Cup tour for the Winston Cup Championship. Winston Cup Championship is very important, but I don't think it's as important as, enjoying myself and the time it takes to do that. I'm not going to do that. I mean, this might sound corny, but I went to a Halloween party the other night. This has been back when, that I've never been to. I dressed up, put the mask on, and got all, crazed out there and had a good time. I'm going to Bike Week in Daytona. I've got me a new Harley I'm going to be there with. I'm enjoying, I miss racing, but, there's a lot of things because of racing I've missed.
Do you have any other goals in racing?
I want to go drag racing, if that's the question. My lifelong goal, and this is not something that's new, it's been a lifelong goal, was to be in a funny car. I very much respect those guys. Unlike a lot of roundy round guys, they don't think drag racing much. I do. But I would really, if I got in a funny car, my first choice would have the name the Blue Max on the side of it. The Blue Max is funny cars.
Of course, Tim used to drive for Raymond Beadle in Winston Cup. He says the two are talking about that funny car, but nothing definite yet. Another thing, Larry, Tim says his main goal in life now is to get married, settle down, and have a family.
Okay, Bob. A significant story this week concerns a Mickey Thompson promotion in Anaheim Stadium last Sunday. During an exhibition run, this dragster unexpectedly accelerated, hit a sled, shearing off its rear wheels and axle, which wounded the crowd, injuring 17.
It was just a freak accident. It's done every week at every place they run, probably 1,000 times a week, the same type of thing. It was supposed to be a little short 20-foot burnout. Something happened where it extended itself. And that's all we can tell you right now.
During normal competition, a system using large rubber belts is used to stop cars, working like this. Unfortunately, the incident was not a time competitor, just a show. None of the injuries is life-threatening. Even the official struck down directly by the car. 5 remain hospitalized. The worst injury, a severe thigh laceration. Listed conditions, 3 fair, 2 stable. This weekend's official season opener in Anaheim still on, but the insurance company will not allow drag racing until a review.
is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. New Quaker State with QSX keeps your engine cleaner to last longer. And by Dodge Cars and Trucks. For performance on road and off, it's gotta be a Dodge.
Next, for these champion drag racers, the rules for some changes.
And later for this champion stalker, the rules also change, but he pretty much stands pat.
You are about to see the smartest oil change you can make. Introducing a new Quaker State motor oil. Now Quaker State has a revolutionary formula called QSX. QSX fights engine choking sludge better than other leading oils to keep oil flowing to vital engine parts. For a cleaner, longer-lasting engine, change your oil. Really change your oil to new Quaker State with QSX, the smartest oil change you can make.
Dodge Shadow ES. When you look at its 60 standard features, its turbocharged engine, its 770 protection plan, when you consider the fact that the Shadow ES is a better value, almost $700 less than the Chevy Cavalier C24, you'll agree, when it comes to outstanding value, it's gotta be a Dodge. The Dodge Shadow ES. Gotta be a Dodge.
You may not have thought of buying a Sears Die-Hard battery until you've had a little time alone to think about it.
The best players in pro football line up for an exciting season finale, the AFC-NFC Pro Bowl. ESPN's Mike Patrick and Roy Firestone bring you all the action of the last NFL game of the season live from Honolulu. Cable TV is your ticket to the AFC-NFC Pro Bowl. Sunday, February 7th at 8 Eastern. The NFL, live on ESPN.
Near San Jose, California, a midwinter test, and a team that is a dreadful but private 300 miles from home, the media-blitzed L.A. area. Agonizing, concentrating, experimenting over and over again. But to stay on top, you simply cannot stand pat. Defending champion teams probably have more pressure to test successfully than their challengers. Kenny, you're here for 3 days before you go to Phoenix. And it must be agonizing because you can only conclude, what, maybe 6 total runs in basically 72 hours?
Well, it's true, but again, the idea to come here was to give us that privacy that we so desire to try some things. And even though we haven't made full runs down the quarter mile and we haven't run 520s, 290 miles an hour, we didn't expect to. We've been trying some things and we've learned from it.
You mentioned some things. Can you be specific? What is the 3-time consecutive champion changing?
Well, first thing you've got to really look at is body styles. The Buick Reatta, obviously on the Budweiser Quaker State Buick, is a complete change from last year. We've lost that tremendous table on the back end, the downforce that we so desire. And so we've got to try to get the car down the quarter mile, a certain part of the quarter mile, to see how it's going to react to the loss of downforce and to drag. That's the number one thing we're working on here. We've got some clutch department areas that we're working on, some engine department areas, a lot of different things Dale's after. Nothing specific, of course, that I'm going to mention directly, but a lot of things cooking over there. And we just got to try it all out, but the body's the main thing.
A primary rival, Paul Candies of Candies and Hughes, fielding cars for Mark Oswald.
We've actually been able to advance ourselves a little bit from some of the Ford technology we've had and the time that we've been able to spend in the wind tunnel with these guys and, you know, the design studio we were in. And the other guys will have to kind of make a step back, and we think we can kind of make a step forward.
For the Bernstein crew, this year's Reatta is completely new, outside and inside. Kenny is not even comfortable sitting in this yet, as he was last year's 3-year-old model.
What we've worked on is a little 2-speed mechanism to speed up the blower at the push of a button. And we think that somewhere in the middle of the course where Kenny can push a button and hold it down for 1 or 2 seconds and give the blower more speed and create about 5 or 6 more pounds of boost for 1 or 2 seconds, I think should be worth in the area of 0.5 of a second also. So that's one little thing we're playing with up here.
Many of the new pieces simply don't work. Some salvageable, others not. But you have to try. A full week for the crew became a pressured one. After one Wednesday run, a second was planned before packing up for the 12-hour drive to this weekend's race in Phoenix. But as Kenny lined up, one of those new pieces associated with the mag jammed the rotor, and the explosion exited through the blower, where a burst plate designed to succumb to excessive pressure kept this from becoming one of those very visual incidents. But, in Kenny's words, that's testing. We talked extensively about the tediousness of testing, but another issue is the safety factor. The setting is reasonably informal for the crew and car preparation, but for the race driver, whenever he steps behind the wheel, suddenly it becomes for real, and he really has to bear down and give extra special attention.
And elsewhere in drag racing, Larry, Billy Meyer, the owner of the IHRA, has filed suit charging breach of contract against the NHRA. Meyer claims the NHRA illegally took away from the Texas Motorplex, which Meyer owns, a divisional point series and the Winston All-Star Race. That event has been moved to Atlanta Dragway.
Juha Kankkunen has won the tragic and controversial Paris to Dakar Rally. 3 stages, including the final one, were canceled because of sandstorms. Ari Vatanen, who led until late, was officially disqualified for failing to show up for the start of one of the stages. He was unable to because his car had been stolen. Well, police have arrested a Frenchman in connection with the case. A total of 6 died during the 21-day event, including an 11-year-old who was struck while crossing a street in her small village, and 2 journalists covering the race.
While that grueling overseas race is wound down, here in America, teams are gearing up for this country's most grueling sports car race. And the Jaguars of Tom Walkinshaw are being prepared for the 24 Hours of Daytona. In 1987, the Silk-Cut Jaguars won all but 2 World Sports Car Championships in Europe. One of those they didn't win was Le Mans, the 24-hour event, longest in European competition. Now from their North American headquarters in Valparaiso, Indiana, TWR is preparing an updated version of those cars for the 24 Hours of Daytona. Testing last week at Talladega was in secret, but the team feels they're ready to win and break the 24-hour jinx.
I don't think anybody that ever goes racing doesn't feel they can win. If they don't feel that, they shouldn't be in racing. And that's what racing is about.
Dow would like to think the Jaguars are the underdog going into the season.
And it's always nicer to be the underdog, isn't it? I mean, that's a lot of people perceive that. You know, Porsche has been the top dog for so long, and along comes Jaguar, and now you have a competition rather than just a walkover. We're not approaching it in a creep-around fashion like the electromotive car or the GM car. You know, we're not backdooring it. We're just putting ourselves out for the world to see. And I think the enthusiasts that follow racing know that this is a full effort to go and win.
We had mentioned that Kevin Kogan can possibly be a part of that Tom Walkinshaw team. He will not. However, Davy Jones will be a part of it, and he'll run for the IMSA title.
Coming up, 4 wheels on a single track, unbeatable indoors.
And riding 2 tracks to a world championship outdoors.
You'll like the way we do business at Key Chrysler, Plymouth Dodge, and Dodge Truck in Xenia. I'm Terry Toby. If you'll just brave the cold of January, you can get an excellent deal on the Chrysler, Plymouth, or Dodge product of your choice. Choose from almost 50 new 1987 models that have $770 cash rebate plus 7.7% fixed rate financing. Or pick from an excellent selection of 88s that have $770 cash or 7.7% financing. It's the best deal in the business, and it's at Key Chrysler in Xenia. I'll see you at Key today.
Major Video, we bring it on home. More movies than you've ever seen, the way you want them. You know what we mean. Make tonight a major night. We do it right. Major Video, we bring it on home.
Open 9 a.m. to midnight, 365 days a year. We're Major Video.
A major Adams Division rivalry. The top-ranked Montreal Canadiens face off against the Quebec Nordiques in a traditional battle on ice. Sunday night, live on ESPN.
Travel arranged through Eastern Airlines. Come fly with the one that can take you to the sun. Eastern, we've got your ticket to the beautiful beaches of Florida and the Caribbean.
The final Winston Cup testing is going on at Daytona. After Saturday, the track will be prepared for the 24-hour IMSA race. The top 5 speeds all belong to General Motors products. Ricky Rudd's Buick is best at over 192. Then Phil Parsons in an Olds, Greg Sachs's Pontiac, Sterling Marlin in an Olds, and Ken Schrader fastest of the Chevys. The Monte Carlos are testing now. Schrader's 190 was turned last December, so we may be hearing more from them before it's over. While other makes have undergone aerodynamic changes, the Chevys are basically the same as last year.
We know what we've got going in. We feel right now we could set the car up and go in there and race it without a lap of practice and be in pretty good shape.
The Fords seem to be struggling a bit. Mark Martin is best at 189.7. Bill Elliott, the defending race champion, practiced at Daytona in an R&D car, not his regular ride.
There's so many cars down here, it's hard to learn anything the way the circumstances are. It normally takes 10:30, 11 o'clock before the racetrack dries out in 1 and 2 anyway, so it limits your time on the racetrack, and that's what we're having to scramble for, is enough time to get everything we got to do done.
Davey Allison, his best, a high 188, is quite disappointed with his Ford and has a theory on why the 1-inch plate has hurt the T-Birds.
The only thing that we can figure is that the air restriction into the Ford engine seems to hurt more than it does in the Chevrolet. I don't know if it's in the design of the engine or if we just haven't found the right combination yet. But it seems that every time they've downsized the carburetors, it has restricted the Fords slightly more than the GMs.
And Davey may be playing a role in another developing story at Daytona.
That's right, Bob. Very interesting. Lake Speed, Morgan Shepherd, and Buddy Baker have all indicated they will run Hoosier tires in the 500, and Davey may join that list. Our Jerry Punch talked with Hoosier's Bob Newton about that company's history.
We're 25 years now. In fact, last year it was our silver anniversary building race tires. I think the product is going to sell itself. I think we've earned our respect and paid our dues, and if you're good, it will show.
Do you feel like that they may, if the Hoosiers are quick in qualifying, you may see some of the more established names, your dad and some of the other older competitors who have been around a lot longer and with Goodyear, making the switch?
I think it's a very strong possibility. What we're all here for is to go out and win races, and we've got to be in a position where if the Hoosiers are the fastest or the Goodyears are the fastest, we're not locked in and getting beat by something else.
So Lake Speed, Morgan Shepherd, and Buddy Baker, 3 pretty strong horses that'll start the year on Hoosier tires. So come February or March even, when they say, how about them Hoosiers, they may be talking about Bobby Knight's boys, but they may also be talking about Bob Newton's guys.
3 more have been added to the IROC field. They are road racers Al Holbert, Chip Robinson, and Scott Pruitt. The final 3 drivers will be announced next week. Expect Roberto Guerrero to be one of them.
And now, this week's Dick Wallen Racing Classic. It involves Winston Cup, but in a totally different era. And can you guess the year? In many ways, this was the final year of utter domination by NASCAR's legends. The ill-fated but lavish Ontario Motor Speedway in Southern California. How or why this place didn't work, forever befuddling. Pole setter David Pearson in the Woods Brothers car vaults to the lead. That's Richard, who else, Petty, along the wall, and the USAC invading A.J. Foyt in Haas Ellington's bright orange. Young Richie Panch, bumped into the wall by the West Ray Elder, looked like he was headed for stardom. It didn't work out. Employed as a TV producer, he died a decade later in a small plane. This shot from left to right, Pearson, Buddy Baker, Petty, Foyt, and lurking in the shadows an AMC Matador. Bobby Allison, remember? Darrell Waltrip won his first race this year. Dale Earnhardt enters his first ever, winning 1900, and Bill Elliott arrives next year. But Pearson, at the height of his career, in the midst of 5 years that will see 36 wins. But Baker in Bud Moore's Ford celebrates his finest season ever with his 4th win. Pearson second, Dave Marcus was third. The year 75, long before Labonte, Bodine, Gant, Wallace, Bobby Helen Jr. was just 10 years old.
Dodge Daytona. When you look at its impressive styling, its long list of standard features, its 770 protection plan, when you consider the fact that Daytona is $346 less than the Ford Mustang LX hatchback, we think you'll agree. When it comes to the right price and performance, it's gotta be a Dodge. the Dodge Daytona, just $89.95.
It's gotta be a Dodge.
If you think physical fitness can help you get ahead in business, subscribe to the Wall Street Journal and see what mental fitness can do.
Call 800-228-1900 for this great journal subscription offer. 13 weeks for just $29.75 with a money-back guarantee. 13 weeks, $29.75. Phone 800-228-1900 now for the Wall Street Journal.
When the USAC Midgets began rolling into Fort Wayne, Indiana for an indoor race last Sunday, it reminded us of another indoor event almost 20 years ago. The Houston Astrodome was the site of the first indoor midget race on dirt. That was in 1969. The favorite was A.J. Foyt, but a young upstart driver from Whitewater, Wisconsin, Tom Bigelow, won the overall championship. Nearly 20 years later, Foyt has won Indy 4 times and the national championship 7 times. Bigelow is still running midgets indoors.
Indianapolis is fabulous, a lot of money, but the thrill of the close competition, you know, wheel to wheel, open tracks like Winchester with the sprint car where you're running around there in 15 seconds, or here, you know, the thrill is there. The money isn't. It's a shame.
2 weeks ago here, Bigelow failed to qualify for the feature because of a slippery track. Today he does qualify, and with a wireless microphone, we hear him tell a USAC official track conditions are just the opposite, sticky.
Oh, really sticky. That's the stickiest I've ever seen it, you know.
In Tom's heat, he survived this encounter between Johnny Parsons and Mark Gerke, an incident which clearly shows how little room there is for passing. But Tom learns from the heat and now plans strategy for the feature.
I feel right now that everybody's going to kind of drop in line down low, so we're going to have to set up to run outside and pass. When you do this, you try to set up that if somebody does make a mistake in a corner, you make a quick turn, chop down underneath of them, and shoot by too.
Tom starts 8th in the 100-lapper, but soon finds he's guessed wrong.
We tried several new things we've been wanting to do. We put some weight in the front of the car, offset the wheels a little more. Then in the feature, the track started going away. We steered real good. The front end stayed down, but the back end was getting away and just couldn't get going.
Sam Eisenhower, who started on the pole, guessed right. He led the entire distance for his second straight win here. Tom didn't win, but his fans remain loyal, and he realizes there's always tomorrow.
You know you can't win them all. I've only won one here in 20-some years. You run good. If you do good, you feel good. And if you don't win, you just look at next week.
Might mention that Tom is a 9-time Indy 500 starter and has won more USAC sprint car races than any other driver. He says he does have a ride for this year's 500.
Bob, I remember the almost invincible Armstrong Mold Sprinter. As we saw here last week on Speedweek, and as many racing people knew, Al Hobart officially declared this week Teo Fabi as the Porsche IndyCar driver for this year.
For sure, I'm not going to go back in Formula One anymore. I think it's a real opportunity to win Indy, and I think for every driver is the most important race to win.
Porsche is constructing a new chassis, but has also contracted March to remodel an 88C to house a Porsche engine, just in case. Al also revealed that other finalists for the seat were Chip Robinson and Jeff Brabham. Some also considered Kevin Kogan, but the surprise, Rich Vogler.
Sure, we had to consider him because he's a racer and he's a winner. He's shown that. He's got a lot of commitment and desire, and so I think for whatever it's worth to him, we sure looked at him hard, and I think maybe other people ought to.
And the new Lolas are arriving in America. Chassis number 1 to Raynor Motorsports for Derek Daly. This is Vince Granatelli's in Phoenix. New monocoque, driver and fuel cell lowered to reduce rear and center of gravity height.
Probably the most significant change is that they've changed the engine angle. They've done this to reduce the height of the rear of the body to allow more air to go underneath the rear wing.
As seen on Speedweek last week, Roberto Guerrero, of course, expected to return.
This week's Bernstein File, brought to you by Quaker State, concerns spotters and the role they play during a race.
There's a lot of different duties on the crew members of a NASCAR Winston Cup team, but one of the most important is being the spotter for the team. Now, a spotter you think of on race day only, but really it's more than that. During the practice leading up to race day, a spotter is very important for the team. He stays on top of this truck and sees what the car is doing. He times the car not only for the full lap that it takes, but in the corners and in the front and back straightaways. And his other duty while he's up here timing is to time the competition to see maybe where his car is losing ground compared to the fastest car on the racetrack. Now, a different thing happens on race day. Off comes all these clocks. You don't have any more pens or pencils to write down numbers, and on with the headset you go. And now you're looking for one thing. That's to help your driver, get him through the traffic and keep him out of trouble, letting the driver know where the wrecks are occurring and what's going on at all time. Also, a spotter might suggest to a driver a different line that he may take on the racetrack. For instance, maybe it should be high or it should be low based on what the leader is doing, and give him some input of what's going on. The second most important thing during race day for the spotter is to let the crew chief know where the pace car is on the racetrack. When the yellow comes out and the pace car goes out, the crew chief must know you don't want to get a lap down under yellow, so that is very important. The whole thing is to keep a lot of concentration going on the spotter, knowing what's happening at all times. I'm Kenny Bernstein.
Now here's this week's trivia question. Tom Bigelow leads that all-time USAC sprint car win list, but who is second? A, Larry Dixon, B, Gary Bettenhausen, C, Pancho Carter, D, Sheldon Kinzer, or E, how about A.J. Foyt? I'll have the answer in a moment.
You are about to see the smartest oil change you can make. Introducing a new Quaker State motor oil. Now Quaker State has a revolutionary formula called QSX. QSX fights engine choking sludge better than other leading oils to keep oil flowing to vital engine parts. For a cleaner, longer-lasting engine, change your oil. Really change your oil to new Quaker State with QSX, the smartest oil change you can make.
A tradition of horsepower. For the second consecutive year, Budweiser racing teams captured 3 national championships. Bobby Rahal in the Bud IndyCar. Kenny Bernstein in the Budweiser King. And Jim Cropfeld in Miss Budweiser. It's a tradition of horsepower that keeps Budweiser ahead of the pack. Racing fans,
ESPN is now the proud home of Motor Week Illustrated, America's first and foremost weekly racing news show. Keep pace with the racing action on television's fastest half hour. If it goes fast, catch it on Motor Week Illustrated.
And the answer to this week's trivia question. Sheldon Kinzer is not correct, though he has lasted longer than any other sprint car racer. Carter is third on the list with 42, and Gary has 40, and Foyt 28. But the answer is Larry Dixon, his 45 victories, second only to Bigelow's record, 52.
The 25th anniversary edition of the World Snowmobile Championships was held last weekend at Eagle River, Wisconsin. The pre-race favorite was series points leader Bobby Donahue. He would start in 4th position in the Formula One finale, but took the lead from hometown favorite Alan Decker on lap 10 and led the rest of the way. Now, this race was stopped twice because of accidents, but there were no injuries. After 8 previous tries, Donahue finally wins the World Championship and has a comfortable 98-point lead in the series standings over David Wall, who failed to make the championship finale.
Next week on Speedweek, details on NASCAR's drug testing program, the Super Bowl of drag racing, and the USAC Midgets at the Hoosier Dome. I'm Larry Nuber.
And I'm Bob Jenkins. We leave you this week with more NASCAR racing from Ontario Motor Speedway.
Speedweek has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. New Quaker State with QSX keeps your engine cleaner to last longer.